Okay, good afternoon, everyone. If everyone's ready, we'll go ahead and get started. Uh, Good afternoon. My name is Jamal Jones. I'm the Director of Business Development with the City of Harrisburg, and we would like to welcome you to our second session in our 2020 workshop series, Positioning Your Business for Success in a Crowded Market. We held our first session in early March of 2020. Actually, I think just the week just prior to everything kind of coming to a major halt due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So again, I want to thank everyone for being here, and we hope that everyone is in good health and spirits, and has been able to begin to turn the corner and start to refocus some of your energy and attention onto your business, and that's what we're here to help you with today. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention, we wouldn't obviously be able to do this without great partners in this. So one of those partners is the Kutztown Small Business Development Center. That group really offers some great services to entrepreneurs and individuals who are interested in starting a business. Tons of mentorship. And also can't say enough about the resources, from the workshops to, different tools and toolkits that are available to anyone who's really interested in starting a business. So, definitely wanted to acknowledge them at the start here. I believe Keisha is on the line. So I don't know if Keisha, if you wanted to introduce yourself or just take a minute to introduce the SBDC.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Jamal. So yeah, the last time that we presented was right before COVID, right? It all happened. So really happy to be here, partnering with Penn State Launchbox and of course the City of Harrisburg. I know Josh is on the line. I just emailed him because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it on time because I was on another call. But here at the SBDC, we're very excited to partner with startups as well as continuing, I'm sorry, my computer is acting up for a minute. But anyway, partnering with established businesses as well as startups. So we're really excited, to help you out from start to finish. So basically our motto is to help businesses start, grow, and prosper. So as Jamal mentioned, we have several tools that are available that we can partner with you on a one-on-one basis. So we are constantly doing training sessions. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for acknowledging, and looking forward to the training session.
Thank you, Keisha. I'll introduce our presenter today. Annie Hughes is the director of the Harrisburg Launchbox and a management consultant with the Penn State SBDC. In her roles with Harrisburg Launchbox, powered by Penn State and Penn State SBDC, Annie supports entrepreneurship and innovation in the Capital Region through lean startup and design thinking instruction and business coaching and consulting. Prior to joining Penn State Harrisburg, Annie was a manager of disruptive innovation at the Hershey Company and a director of sales and marketing at Ecolips Incorporated, a small business in her home state of Iowa. Annie has a bachelor's degree from Northwestern University School of Communication and an MBA from the University of Iowa. She lives in Harrisburg, where she and her husband are active in the community, building economic development efforts. So with no further delay, I will turn things over to you, Annie.
Okay. All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Jamal. Thanks, everybody. Keisha, the gang's all here. We're excited to have you all visiting today, and we're excited to help you start, grow, and prosper your business, as was mentioned. So I am about to share my screen, and we can go ahead and get started. Give me just a minute here. Zoom is always an adventure for me. All right, give me one quick second. Hopefully you see me sharing my screen, and I'm about to put it in presenter mode. Okay, can I just get a confirmation, Jamal or Momin, that you can see my screen, just full screen?
I can see it.
Okay, super, thank you so much. All right, well, welcome everybody to the Positioning Your Business for Success in a Crowded Market workshop. We are so happy to have you. As mentioned, I'm Annie Hughes. I'm the director of the Harrisburg Launchbox, powered by Penn State, and a management consultant for the Penn State SBDC. In today's workshop, you will learn how to develop strong positioning strategies that are critical to your business, especially if you're competing in a crowded market with lots of competition. First of all, I guess I'd love to get a sense of, who's in the room. So go ahead and use that chat box, go ahead and type what type of business you're in. And if you're just starting out, go ahead and share that too. We'd just love to see, who's here today. So I am looking at the chat box now. Can't wait to see who is in the room with us. If you can find the chat box, that's the first challenge. What types of businesses do we have here? I don't know if I see anybody. I might be doing it wrong, but that's okay. If you do not, let's see. Okay, that's all right. We will move on. There'll be plenty of chances for you to participate later here. Okay, we have local government. Yes, I figured as such. But this is going to be a bit of an interactive webinar. And so I want everyone in the room to be participating. I might call on you for some ideas and inputs throughout the workshop. You'll get a lot more out of it, actually, if we're a bit more interactive. And the cool thing is about this particular subject matter is it's really fun. Strategic marketing is really fun because it's really intuitive to most of us. We live in a world where we're surrounded by marketing. So we get it when we learn about it. So this should be, as one manager told me a long, long time ago when I first got into business, if you're working in strategic marketing and innovation, you're not having fun, something's wrong. All right. So if we're not having fun with this, something's wrong. So, okay, thank you.
If I can just interrupt briefly, so I did receive some messages here, and I think the chat was not enabled for everyone publicly, so I did receive some privately. So I'll read those, and then it's also been enabled publicly now, so everyone should be able to. But we have Alice Ann Schwab, Susquehanna Art Museum. We have Lynn Lueza working with the SBDC, Noemi S, e-commerce. Jamal Jones, local government, I see. Karen Markey, Freedom Manufacturing, small local job shop manufacturing for local businesses. Lou Ann, Facilities Management. And Tiffany sent a public message out. I'm just starting out. I will have a clothing business. I see a message from Davinia McDowell. My business is a startup nonprofit girls empowerment group. And Josh Kovich, SBDC. And then I think that was it. Then Tiffany sent a message. My name is Daisha Smith. So that's it.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, well, thank you guys. See, we got that all figured out. We got the dream team here working on the back end. So thank you. Wow, what a great group we have. What a diverse group of different types of businesses and different stages in your life cycle. That is awesome. I have excellent news for all of you. The stuff that you're going to learn today applies to all of you. Doesn't matter if you're brand spanking new or if you've had your business in market for a while. These types of principles are universal. So, all right, we'll get into it, but it's good to have you all with us. All right. First, just quickly about the Harrisburg Launchbox, what we are, what we do. Harrisburg Launchbox is a startup accelerator. It's a resource hub for entrepreneurs. We offer startup accelerator training programs for early stage entrepreneurs in particular. We also offer coaching one-on-one to entrepreneurs at any stage. This is free, okay? We offer free legal help through Penn State Law Legal Clinics. I do recommend you take a look at that if you haven't already. That is a heck of a deal. Legal is very expensive, as most of you know, so please do take a look at our free legal services. And we also, during non-pandemic times, we offer free workspace to entrepreneurs who are working with us. Okay, so that's a little bit about what we do. So if you have time, please do pop on our website, harrisburg.launchbox.psu.edu. I am going to outline some upcoming programming at the end of this presentation, so stay tuned. I'll let you know what's coming up that you may be interested in. Okay, first, a little bit about me. Okay, so I cut my business teeth working for a startup in my home state of Iowa, organic body care company, a manufacturer. I was the director of sales and marketing there. And then I loved that so much. I was so into strategic marketing and product development, innovation, all that stuff, that I got my MBA in strategic marketing and management. And then my next job actually was at an enormous company, the Hershey Company. And I worked in brand management there, and I also worked in innovation. And by the time I left the Hershey company, I was a manager of disruptive innovation there. So I was developing and launching new products, new product categories, new, and also new innovation processes. So figuring out how Hershey could get innovation to market faster and more efficiently and more successfully. So essentially, here's what I want to share. My experience has run the gamut between very small and very large companies. What I noticed is that the strategic marketing principles that we're about to cover today apply to both. So when I say that this is a universal principles you're learning, I mean that. They're practiced at the Hershey company, just like as they're practiced at a tiny, organic lip balm manufacturer in the state of Iowa. Okay, so they'll apply to you too. And so I hope you enjoy this today. Okay, now let's get into it. What the heck is brand positioning? So first, let's talk about what we mean by brand. Okay, so for our conversation today, let's define brand as product or service offering with a particular identity attached to it. So, and this is really from the perspective of the customer, which is really, when you're in marketing, it's all that matters. Your customer's perspective is really the critical thing here. So from your customer's perspective, your brand is your products or services plus the unique identity attached to it. And that identity is defined by the unique value and benefits you deliver. So, perhaps your identity is defined by a totally unique type of product you can't get anywhere else. So Apple is a good example of this, right? Apple, their machines are unique from PCs. They have different operating systems, et cetera, right? So when you say an Apple, you mean a differentiated machine, plus there's all kinds of layers on that brand, but we won't get into that. But then also you might be in a category where you produce basically the same thing as your competition. There's not a ton of differentiation on the product or service level, and you still have to differentiate. And so there's a couple examples here, PC laptops, right? What differentiates one from the other? A Dell from an HP laptop. Donuts, what differentiates Dunkin' glazed donut from a Krispy Kreme glazed donut? Including, getting a little more complicated, we get into something like Target versus Walmart. They're both superstores, right? They provide you the same basic benefits of selling you all the stuff you need to fill your house. But think about how their brands differ from each other. So what makes them different? Because you better believe that the founders of both those companies, sat down and spent many, many hours figuring out, how am I going to differentiate from the other, superstores out there. This is probably at the brand manager's desk, not the founders, because this is many years later that this crowded market came to be. But they spent a lot of time and a lot of strategy figuring out how to differentiate from Target from Walmart and Walmart from Target. So as a customer, why don't you think about your experience, Target versus Walmart? What makes them different to you? Okay. Why is identity important, and why does it need to be different, so differentiated from other brands? Why do brands need to differentiate from each other? It's kind of like how you define your own identity versus the members of your family. Is that important to you? Probably. How are you distinct from your family members? So let's go back to Apple a second. Besides having a different operating system, a different type of machine, there's a lot of intention in that brand to make it different from other brands too. So what words describe the Apple brand to you? Do you guys want to just go ahead and type them in the chat box? What are words that are associated with that brand in your experience that make up its identity? Go ahead and write them in the group chat if you have anything to add. Okay, one person, Lynn, said innovative. Yeah, definitely. That's an intangible asset, right? Sleek. Okay, great, Jonathan. So that's that has to do with their visual design of their machines. Anything else? Those are really great, great words to make up the brand. Again, that's all by intention. Okay, super. All right, so we'll get into the details of what this means and how you can execute this coming up next. All right, now let's talk about brand positioning. Let's start by talking about what brand positioning isn't, and then we'll talk about what it is. That might be the easiest. Okay, brand positioning is not. Brand positioning is not branding. Branding is an execution of your brand identity. It's kind of like the clothing you put on your products and services so that people can identify them as yours. So that might be, you know, your brand name, your logo, your packaging design, even the look and feel of your product. So branding is very important, right? But it's tactical. It's an execution of a strategy. It comes along after you've figured out your brand positioning. Brand positioning is a strategic process. Okay, so brand positioning is not the same thing as branding. Brand positioning is also not advertising. Advertising is a way to communicate the existence of your brand and your brand positioning, what your brand stands for, to the world. It's the way you show your brand strategy to the world. Advertising is critical for sure, and there could be many webinars just on this, but this is not what we mean by brand positioning. Brand positioning is the conceptual place your business owns in the target customer's mind. That is a way of saying what your brand stands for from the customer's perspective. Also, it's the benefits that your customer knows you by and that differentiate your business. It also happens to be the core of your business strategy. So you can see this is a very important concept to think through, and this belongs in the strategic processes of putting together your brand and your business planning. Okay, strong brand positioning is both relevant, so that is your product and service serves a real underserved customer need. So it's relevant to the customer. When I say underserved, I mean that the customer has a need or a problem that your product is solving. I mean, and this might be oversimplifying, but products and services, when you sell them to a customer, they really are a solution to a customer problem. And if you think of them that way, that will clarify a lot of things for you. A product is a solution to a customer problem or a need, okay? It's best that the need is underserved because that means that the customer is not satisfied. The customer is not satisfied with what's already out there. So if you can improve upon the competition, or if you're filling in a gap in serving that need, you're in much better position. You're much stronger ground, right? Okay, so strong brand positioning is relevant to the customer. It's also differentiated from the competition. So your product and services is distinctive from the customer's perspective, okay? So I'm gonna illustrate this with some real examples, and I call these, the first one, A Tale of Two Tacos, because I'm ridiculous. All right, so the first one, let's talk about two brands that you are probably very familiar with. The first is Taco Bell. I want you to think about the last time you visited Taco Bell. So just take a quiet moment. Just remember, what made you decide to go? Was it planned? Was it an impulsive visit? Who did you go with, if anybody? What was the experience like? Did you eat in the restaurant? Did you eat it somewhere else? What was the food like? How was the food provided to you? What was it served in? How did you feel about the value of the food you got? So the price-value relationship. And how long did you stay if you ate actually at the restaurant? Okay, so that's your Taco Bell experience. Now let's talk about another fast Tex-Mex restaurant. This one's called Chipotle, for those of you who are not familiar. So think about the last time you went to Chipotle. Now, if you haven't been to either of these restaurants, think about what you've heard about them, or think about what you learned from friends or even advertisements, okay? What made you decide to go to Chipotle? Was it planned or an impulsive visit? Who did you go with? What was the experience like? Did you eat in the restaurant or somewhere else? What was the food like? How was the food provided to you? What was the food served in? How did you feel about the value of the food you got? How long did you stay if you ate inside the restaurant? Okay, great. So you are a customer, right? So we're having you use yourself as a data point here, a little customer research. But it's important for you to get grounded in the experience of those two competitors. And now we're going to talk about the positioning. Okay. So we're actually going to look at advertising to try to figure out the positioning of these two competitors. Because as you recall, advertising is the way you communicate your brand positioning. It's kind of like the window into the intention of the founder or in this case, because they're corporate companies, you know, the brand manager. So for Taco Bell, here's an advertisement that probably is a pretty good indicator of the positioning. What do you see here? You see product. We call this appetite appeal shot, I think was what it used to be called in the industry. So for Taco Bell, it's all about product. And they put it right up in your face, right? Delicious, satisfying, convenient, cheap. That's what I'm getting from this advertisement, right? That's what they're about, okay? Versus Chipotle. Now, this is one of their advertisements. These are both print adverts, by the way. You can see that they have tried to elevate their positioning. So even though they're a fast casual restaurant, they're trying to elevate their positioning and pull it away from what you see on the left-hand side. And here it's all about product quality, isn't it? So they have copy or language that refers to it, real chicken, right? They have the ingredients separated out. The look and feel of the ad looks like a drawing, like an old-timey sort of natural drawing, parchment. I don't know, the muted colors. It communicates naturalness, doesn't it? And so, none of this is by accident, right? This is all designed to communicate the positioning of product quality. And as you think about it, and you thought about your last time you were in a Chipotle, everything about that experience, from when you see the building on the outside to when you walk in, to when you order your food and see your burrito barista sort of putting your burrito together, to how you eat it, to what it's served on, to all the details of the product options, and of course the product sourcing, which is their claim to fame, product quality, right? All of that is by design. So they're using their customer experience, your experience inside that restaurant, as part of the definer and shaper of their product positioning. All these things help to elevate the experience, and the point of that elevated experience is to pull the brand away from a Taco Bell. So someone took great pains, in designing a Chipotle to make sure no one would ever confuse it with a Taco Bell. That is the punchline to this joke, okay? It's really that simple, okay? All right, so when I asked you earlier to think about your past experiences with Taco Bell and Chipotle, some of you probably came up with this memory. So for Taco Bell, I was, by myself. I was in my car. Maybe it was late at night. I had a craving. I wanted something cheap that was still tasty enough and good enough quality. And I went through the drive-thru and I ate the food in my car, and I ate it really fast, barely looked at it, okay? Anyone relates to that? I do too, so, okay. Versus Chipotle, some of you may have had this experience. I was with my coworker, or I was with my kids, pre-COVID. We stopped by for a quick lunch or a quick dinner. We wanted to eat inside. We wanted delicious and quality food to enjoy. We wanted to have an experience eating in a restaurant, right? We were prepared to pay a bit more than fast food. We didn't want fast food, essentially, okay? So some of you may have had that experience. So as we've said before, it's very important that brands in the same product category, like these Tex-Mex casual restaurants, differentiate from each other. So in the case of Taco Bell and Chipotle, the two brands differentiate in a couple different ways. They differentiate by customer need. That is, the two stories we just told, they're illustrating two different customer needs. One is, I have a craving late at night in my car by myself, and I want to get the food and consume the food as quickly as possible. That's one need. The other is, I want to have an experience where I'm eating with a friend in a restaurant that just feels more comfortable to me to be in and more enjoyable to be in. That's another type of need, right? They might be the same type of customers, but they have different needs at different times. So they differentiate based on two different scenarios that the customers might be experiencing. They differentiate by convenience too. Taco Bell is a drive-through. Taco Bell is much lower cost than is Chipotle. Those things all point to convenience, right, for the customer. And they also differentiate in quality-price relationship. So Taco Bell, this is not to say Taco Bell has poor quality food. I mean, it's fine, right? But it's not fine dining either. It's moderate quality food in order to hit a certain price point that the customer wants, a low price point. While Chipotle offers, compared to Taco Bell, a higher quality of both eating and ingredient experience, okay? And charge a little bit more money. So all of this differentiation, as I mentioned, is business strategy. None of it's accident, okay? All right, so the reason, as I mentioned before, is because we know we don't the worst thing that could happen is that customers look at these two restaurants as exactly the same, as interchangeable. That is something that I recommend everyone try to avoid. When you think about your competition, is your worst enemy is being interchangeable in the mind of the customer with your competition. Why? Okay, well, what would happen if these two brands were interchangeable? How would they compete with each other if they were exactly the same? Any thoughts from the crowd? Well, people thought of Taco Bell and Chipotle as the very same, like if they offered the same food, you know, even the same price points, you know, what would be left to compete on? So oftentimes, I'll just tell you, I mean, oftentimes when, yes, thank you, Michelle. Oftentimes when competition is, right, so exactly. So Tiffany and Karen, you're getting into the good stuff. You're like, what can I compete on? Yes, you're right. You could, the experience, right? The facility that surrounds you, the quality of the service. Yes, exactly. If these two things were interchangeable though, if all else was equal, they would only have price to compete on. And price is a very bad and dangerous foundation to compete on, okay? We'll get into that later, but let's first learn about other ways to differentiate your businesses. And some of these you'll be able to apply to your businesses now. Other ways to differentiate. Here we go. Okay, the first one is premium positioning. And I'm gonna tell you a little story to illustrate this. It's about Uber. So when ride sharing first hit the market, Uber was the only game in town, right? Disruptor, you know, totally disrupted the cab industry, et cetera. That was about 2009. Then Lyft arrived in about 2012, and the battle for customers and the struggle to differentiate ensued. So Uber, they differentiated up. We're speaking historically now, so this doesn't really apply so much today. But they differentiated up. That is, they adopted a premium positioning compared to Lyft. So you can see it in the advertisement here. And the tagline at the time was everyone's private driver, right? So I mean, that's what that looks like in this advert, right? It looks like a chauffeur and a rider. And that enabled them to charge a little bit more because Lyft was coming in and trying to undercut them in price. Lyft, they understood, very smart marketing folks over there, they understood that marketing their value proposition as simply cheaper, we're cheaper than Uber, that sounds appealing. That wasn't a good strategy, right? They needed something else to communicate, to indicate that they were a lower cost option. Because cheaper sounds as a negative connotation, right? It sounds like you're going to get a crappy experience. So, so they reframed that less expensive. They reframed it as casual, relaxed, fun, not hoity-toity. It's like riding with a friend. So words with positive connotations, etc. They also tried to create a distinctive personality for their brand back in the day. They communicated this through adorning all of their cars with these pink mustaches. I don't know if you guys remember this. They killed it in 2016, but does anybody remember the pink mustaches in the cars? I don't know. They weren't really in the Harrisburg market at the time, but yeah, so they were really trying to make it kind of quirky, fun. You know, it was very on brand, on personality, right? Brand personality. So the point here is now, you know, back in the day, Uber, their response to competition coming in and undercutting them on price was to actually not compete on price back, right? Because now we know, I mean, in this industry where they're struggling to make money, that would have killed both businesses. There would have been a race to the bottom, right? Uber actually intentionally differentiated up and said, you know what, we're a better ride. And we're gonna invest a little bit more in a nicer ride, and we're gonna charge more. And we're gonna make that our brand strategy. So that's what they did. Now, since then, they've shifted their strategy to differentiated product types and differentiated customers, which we'll get into a little bit, which is a very smart strategy like Uber Eats and you know, business customer products. But this was the original strategy. So premium is a position that you may take. You might even take it if you know, some categories and products lend themselves to this a little better than others. I noticed there was there's a museum in here. There's maybe some customer, like consumer products, you know, body care, you know, food. Some of this stuff premium works because it isn't, that stuff isn't necessarily priced out of people's price ranges, but it promises an elevated experience, you know? So, so premium might be a positioning tactic that you consider, okay? All right, let's go on to another option. customer type. This is another way to differentiate. You can differentiate by targeting a different customer than your competition is targeting. This is actually the safest way to differentiate because you're not battling your competition for the same set of eyeballs and the same set of dollars, right? So we're going to look at hybrid cars and electric cars. So Toyota Prius, this business model was clearly trying to sell a lot of cars. You can tell from this advertisement that they're targeting a particular type of customer, and the ad the ad shows you who that might be. Someone who's interested in saving money. So someone who's interested in purchasing a hybrid for cost savings. So when you think about who this might be targeted to, you probably think about kind of mainstream America, very middle class, right? Neither the top end or the low end of the economic distribution. Whereas something like a Tesla, that was intentionally positioned in a luxury status. And luxury is a strategy that's a step beyond premium, okay? Luxury actually intentionally tries to exclude people from who's able to afford the product. And the reason is it drives up the value of that product through leveraging a concept of scarcity, right? So when there's few of something in the market, the price goes up, right? So a Tesla is targeting a different type of customer than the Prius. And it really hits home, especially with a customer who's interested in proclaiming their social status. Really, luxury cars and sports cars, they're not, they're less about transportation and they're more about, it's not about utility, it's more about entertainment. And it's also it's a social badge. More often than not, it's a social badge. That's the benefit to the customer. So you can see from this Tesla ad that its messaging appeals to the entertainment value of the car. Like it's almost like it's a sports car, right? Driving fast along the road, blurry, lay rubber. That speaks very much, that connotes kind of like racing a car, right? Which is very much a sports car type of message. All right, but these are two very different types of customers. So that might be another strategy to consider with your product. Then we have value added offering. So we're gonna look at furniture for this one. We have two very well-known brands here, IKEA and Wayfair. So if you're like me, you've been hitting up these brands while you've been quarantined because you have nothing else to do. So how do these two brands differentiate? They both try to create as much distinction in design as possible, for sure. IKEA especially, it's a European brand. So, but what's most important to the customer who is shopping for low-cost furniture, a customer who wants low-cost furniture wants as much style for as little money as possible. I mean, hopefully you guys, if anyone disagrees, let me know. But that's kind of the gist of who's shopping these providers. So it's all about saving money. They want stylish furniture. They don't want to spend too much. So Wayfair seized on this customer truth and added additional value to their proposition by offering what? Does anybody know? What does Wayfair offer that IKEA doesn't? It's not a product. It's a value add. Anyone? It used to be in all their commercials. They used to make jingles about them. It used to drive me crazy. Yes. What kind of delivery? Karen? Yes, thank you. Free delivery. That's right. Yes, they ship their bigger items free. And they learn this by doing a lot of customer research on the pain points of ordering furniture online. Is that shipping, $50, $100, I think IKEA can charge $50 or $100 for shipping if needed. That's a real pain point. It seems like wasted money to this customer, right? It's not money that they have just sitting in the seats of their cushion. It's a significant amount to spend on something that they don't get value from, right? So they added free shipping across the board above a certain threshold. And that was a differentiator from IKEA because they understood that cost saving benefit that mattered to this particular type of customer, okay? All right, another example of value add, airlines. Airlines are notoriously hard to differentiate from each other, except on price. So let's look at two examples here. We have Allegiant, super no frills, get you to your destination, cheapest. That's Allegiant. Flew Allegiant one time, was pretty sure the guy who checked us in at the counter was the guy who loaded our luggage and also flew the plane. Pretty sure that happens. Super low frills, okay? Then we have Southwest, also a lower cost carrier, but tries to add elements to the experience that might persuade a person to choose them over Allegiant to make the travel more enjoyable. What kind of experience does Southwest try to deliver? What do they, no, okay, okay, free bags. Okay, I did not know that, that's cool. That's definitely value add. So definitely add that to this list. Tiffany, you should teach us with me next time. Anything else about the experience of Southwest? No fees? Yeah. Okay, great, great. Okay, sure. And some of these benefits are extremely important, right? Because they combat the concept of waste, you know, extra money that doesn't go anywhere, doesn't provide any value, for sure. Really important to low cost flyers. And the other thing that Southwest offers, though, that can't be duplicated is a brand experience where their staff are like telling jokes. Last time I was on a Southwest flight, I'm not even kidding. The flight attendants were telling jokes. It was like an open mic at the front of the plane. So, and it was supposed to have this experience with heart, you know, and that's how they position themselves. If you look at this ad, it's probably difficult to see, but they talk about how they love people. The heart sets us apart, right? So they want to make the experience special. That doesn't really cost them much. That just costs them, you know, getting good staff, right, who can deliver that. But that's their value add. It's a fun, warm, personal experience. Great. Okay, here's my PSA for the day. Do not differentiate only on price. Price can be one point of differentiation. It should not be the only. And I think we talked about this a little bit before, but you know, think about the last example, Southwest's attempt to avoid differentiating only on price in an industry with very little differentiation between major carriers other than price. You know, when you compete on price, you have now stepped on a very slippery slope where it's a price war, and that takes you to the bottom. It kills both you and your competition. So it's kind of like a mutually assured destruction. So everybody loses. So find something else. If price is one thing, fine. If it can be protectable, even better, but find something else also to differentiate on. Okay, why does positioning matter? Let's get into the heart of it a little bit more. Why this matters, it's about minimizing your risk. So it's when you want to start another fish market in a sea of fish markets. The critical question that your lender will ask you is, how is this different from the other 96 fish markets that are out there? It's when you're about to duplicate a competitor, okay? I can't even believe this is a real product, but yes, you know, it's very tricky to duplicate a competitor. Don't assume you're going to get sales from them. It's very difficult to steal sales. You need something significantly better than what's out there. So you need that significant differentiation to effectively compete with an established competitor, okay? It's really about how will your business provide value to the customer in a differentiated way. That's what we're trying to answer with this exercise. What is value? Value is defined by your customer. Do you remember how we said product or service is a solution to a customer problem? Product is a solution to a problem by the customer. Value means, in the eye of the customer, is whatever your product delivers, whatever benefits it gives them that solves the problem. It's something is high value if it solves my problem well. Something is low value if it doesn't solve my problem well. If I buy a floor cleaner, and it works great and it cleans my floor in one go, that's probably a high value item for me. If the reverse is true, it's junk to me, right? So that's what your customer defines that value term. So value fulfills a customer need or solves a customer problem. Okay. What's the difference between a customer problem, need, or want? This is usually a question I get. There's really no difference. It's all how the customer articulates it, right? And they just experience their problems, their wants, their needs. They just experience them differently. Like, for example, entertainment. You know, people are like, is that a problem? Like, if somebody wants entertainment, is it a need? Yeah, it actually is. It is a need. But they might describe that as a want or a desire instead of a problem or a need. So it's all the same thing. It's some kind of need, okay? All right, how do you create value? That's the $1 million question. All right, let's talk about how to create value. And we're gonna use an example here, a hypothetical. So we know that starting a business is about serving a customer want or need with something you are good at. The intersection of those two things is how to create value. So let's consider an example in which you are a baker that specializes in cakes, pies, and biscuits. Your main customer is a French restaurant that is looking to outsource its desserts. They aren't interested in pies and biscuits because they're not French, you know, but they are very interested in your delicious cakes. So value in this case to your customer is your delicious Frenchy cakes, because these cakes also serve the customer need. They add that delicious French dessert to the menu, right? Without the customer having to go and employ a pastry chef, right? They're outsourcing. It's making it easier for the customer and it's fitting their need. So cakes is the area of value. Okay. Now, to complicate things, here comes your competition, because they ruin everything. So they are a bakery that specializes in things that are bready. So bread, biscuits, muffins, everything bread. They compete with you directly when it comes to biscuits, but that's not relevant to a French restaurant, is it? No, that's more of a, maybe it's a breakfast place that's interested in that. So that doesn't apply here. They primarily serve this customer, the French restaurant, with their baguette, which is a product that you don't make, and you wouldn't be good at making it. You have no idea how to make baguette, right? And they're bread geniuses. So that is something they excel at that the customer really needs. Well, it turns out that this French restaurant is interested in adding ice cream to the menu, the dessert menu. It's summertime, it's hot outside. Ice cream is something that makes sense for you to offer to sell with your cakes, cake and ice cream. It's easy to make, you just need an ice cream maker, right? However, your competition had the same idea recently. They're like, hey, we're making ice cream too now, right? So now you're going head to head with your competition, the bread bakery shop, in the area of ice cream. So here's the scenario. Let's look at this kind of categorically as areas of competition, all right? And let's figure out what to do. All right, so the area that's indicated with the biscuit, that's considered the irrelevant zone. It's what you're good at, but your customer doesn't want it. So biscuits are irrelevant to this French restaurant customer, so this is irrelevant in this case, right? Then you have the losing zone. The losing zone is what your customer wants, what the competition excels at, but what you're not good at or what you can't do. So if you aren't good at it today, and if you don't absolutely need to do it, to take the time to get the competency to make bread, then don't waste your time doing it. It's not a good investment area. It's better to capitalize on your strengths, right? That's the losing zone. Next, we have the risky zone. This is the ice cream area. This is where you're head to head with your competition in an area that your customer wants. And when you're head to head competing with a customer, it's best to try to differentiate in this area. So maybe you offer the customer flavored ice cream to pair with your cakes. Maybe it's complimentary flavors, or maybe you innovate another way with ice cream. But anything else but being exactly like your competition when it comes to get it to ice cream, right? Because then it's really all about price. You get into a price war, right? This is what we're trying to avoid. Okay, that's the risky zone. Next, we have what's called the winning zone, which is also called your unique selling proposition. And your unique selling proposition are products and features that serve your customer in a way that they want, but that's also differentiated from your competition, and it's what you're good at. So it's truly the sweet spot. It's what your customer wants and needs, it's what you're good at, and which there's little to no competition in that area. And for you, your USB, your unique selling proposition, is cakes in this case. Okay. All right, so as a reminder, success is a result of providing differentiated value to your customer. That is what business success is, literally. It's really that simple, and it's also that difficult. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the components of success here. The first is your customer. So for some of you, this might be who you want your customer to be, which is literally everyone on earth. But when you don't define a customer target specifically, you will have problems. So I'm sorry, guys, this is not your customer. What happens to products when they try to be everything to everyone? Does anyone have any ideas? When a product tries to be everything to everyone, what happens? Feel free to type it in the crash. Okay. Yeah, right. You're nothing to no one, basically. If you're not specific and single-minded, if you're not speaking to a specific target, you don't resonate with anybody. So it's a bad strategy. So don't take up this strategy. Instead, let's talk about a different strategy. And I'm borrowing this analogy from communications marketing, actually. Think of your total market, that is everyone who might buy your product, as a bullseye target. So the center is one focused group of customers, and they are also your early adopters. So the first group of customers that really buy your products, and they're really, really into your products. Now the other rings, the outer rings of this target, they're related in some ways to the inner rings, but as they move out along the target, they're less and less alike from each other. That's how to, I think, interpret this as a map, right? So your bullseye customer is your target market. They're your early adopters. They're the ones that you design your products for. Here's who you have to get. Here's who you have to go out and get as your customers. And you want to get really specific in terms of how you define your early adopters. The reason why this is important, and the reason why I'm having you focus just on one small part of this target, is because you need your early adopters to be big fans of your products. And the reason is because they need to go out and evangelize to everyone else. Okay, people will listen to them talk about how great you are more than they will listen to you as a manufacturer talk about how great you are. Okay, people will see them using your products and think, oh, I'd like to try that. Or they'll see their reviews, right, on Amazon, or, you know, whatever the case is. They'll see articles written about, you know, the latest model of, I don't know, mobile phone, and based on real users, early adopters, right? And then the mainstream will follow. You need these early adopters. The only way you get them is to be very specific and disciplined and targeted in both designing for these folks and marketing to these folks, okay? Now, rest assured, you will get sales from the other rings, and this is very counterintuitive. You will get other sales from those larger markets too in diminishing volumes, but you must successfully target these folks first. Otherwise, you will not get anybody. Okay? All right, why? This is probably the best illustration I've seen to show why it's so important to target and bag those early adopters right away. This represents what's called an adoption curve for any marketing geeks out there like me. And the segments here mainly differ on how early in a product life cycle that people will buy a product. And it's really, these groups are differentiated by how interested they are in new stuff, novelty, and also their comfort level with risk. So when you buy a new product that's just on the market, think about last time you were on like an Amazon or whatever, and you see a new product that has no reviews. You know, are you a person who's like, you know what, that product looks good, I'm gonna try that with 0 reviews? Or are you like me, who's like, no, I need at least 100 reviews, you know, certified customers in the US, you know, like I need to read everything basically before I make a decision to buy. You know, that can basically, you can map yourself on this chart. Are you on the left side or are you on the right side? Okay. So you can see that this adoption curve starts with innovators. Those are people who love trying new products and who are not put off by the risk of trying something brand new before other people have. So they buy stuff without benefits of reviews. They probably are the first reviews, but they're a tiny portion of the total market size. You can't really make a business around them because you're not going to pull in enough revenue, right? On the whole, you know, there's some niche areas that might be fine, but for a lot of you guys, for what you're selling or, you know, what you're doing, you need a bigger group to sell to. So next to them, you have a slightly larger group that are called the early adopters. We've talked about them. They also love to try new products, but first they need at least some indication from other folks, you know, is this product worth it? Is it good? Is it providing value? There are enough of these folks to start getting traction with your cash flow, right? With dollars as they start to buy. There are also enough of them that they can start influencing the larger group out there, like they're parading around on Instagram, you know, with your product maybe, or they're wearing your t-shirts, or they're eating your ice creams, and they can start influencing purchasing decisions of a much larger group. But I want to tell you, the larger group, the rest of us, because I'm on that group, there is a giant chasm. It's very, very difficult to, I mean, this curve makes it look easy, like, oh, this is how it goes. It's very difficult to cross the chasm of early adopters to majority, to mainstream. Those early adopters need to be really excited about what you're doing. They need to shout it from the hilltops, right? So hopefully this makes you understand why it's so critical that you really get these early adopters, you make them your biggest fans so that they can sell really for you. Okay, and you can, so I want you to burn this image into your minds, especially with that big scary red arrow, because this is you know, if you're in, especially if you're in consumer products, this is a very difficult feat. Now that I've scared you to death. Okay. So when you are defining your bullseye target customer, it helps to create a persona of them. And a persona is a description of the customer type. So it's not necessarily a real description of one real person. I suppose it could be, but it's usually a composite of many target customer types that you talk to in your research. And when you put together a persona, you want to create a profile as if this were one person. You know, describe them. You know, describe their interests. You know, what they're like, what their lifestyle's like, what their day-to-days like. Include characteristics, definitely the needs they have or the problems that they have that you're trying to solve. Behaviors, values, attitudes, demographics shouldn't ever just be on their own, right? They need to relate to how they define your target customer. So don't just throw demographics in there for the heck of it. You know, make sure they're meaningful. For example, like if you're selling a product in a grocery store, you know, you might say, you know, part of my bullseye target is a female between, you know, 24 and 48. But then that might be because, I mean, today in America, you know, primary shoppers in households are still females, and they're usually around that age. So that might be the reason why that demographic appears in this persona. But if you don't have a data point like that, you know, to throw in there, then don't put demographics in there. Where demographics start to matter is sometimes in your communications marketing. But I guess what I want to say is, as you define your target customer, make sure you're leaning in more on needs, problems, and behaviors. All right, and have the demographics just be there as more of a supporting detail, okay? All right, so now that we have a picture of our customer, let's try to understand his or her need a little bit more. Okay, we're gonna play a game here. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm gonna show you a product, and I want you to try to identify the customer need by working backwards from seeing the end product. So you're kind of reverse engineering what you think the customer need is that this product is solving. So I'll ask you a couple times to identify what you think that customer need is, okay? You can type your answers in the chat window as I ask, and this will be a fun game, okay? So here's the first product I want to show you. So what do you think is the customer need that this product is solving? Go ahead and write it in the chat window. Okay. Status and speed. I love the honesty here. Sex, big ego, social. Yes. Okay. You guys listened from earlier. All right. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So you see sports car here when I put this here. Excellent. Excellent. So I'm going to put up a couple of competitors, and you see if, you know, any answers change here. So I think you guys have really nailed in the emotional benefits of a sports car, right? Versus like the utility of it versus like item D, right? Necessity, like instead of taking the bus. Now, most of you are going to be like, Annie, I mean, if it's just between the bus and a car, it's not going to be, what is it, a Ferrari? It's not going to be a Ferrari, right? You're probably right. You're probably right. But you can see that this product provides both utility and a ton of emotional benefits, and that's the need that's being solved here. It's more than just transportation. I think you guys nailed it the first time. Okay, cool. Let's do it again. All right. How about this product? What need is this solving for the customer? Okay. Caffeine fix. Okay, status. Okay. Anything else? Yeah, socializing. Okay, good. Yeah. Right. So, you know, yep, exactly. You know what you're getting, socializing, status, caffeine fix. So I can see that, you know, some of the participants, you're observing both the product inside environment, good, your product inside the cup, and also the brand, the full value proposition that this brand is offering. So here are some competitors, and just think about, you know, why somebody would choose this A over B, why someone would choose A over C, why someone would choose A over D. And again, you get the sense that there's utility in this product. There's the caffeine fix. There's also the experience, right? You know, it's a, I guess it's kind of, you know, Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts reminds me a little bit of like the Chipotle versus Taco Bell example, right? Dunkin' Donuts is about fast, it's a quality product, but you know, fast and easy. And you usually take it to go, don't you? Whereas Starbucks might invite you to stay, and you might actually go there as in a gathering space. I mean, Starbucks definitely positions themselves as gathering spaces. You might want it as a treat. This might be a treat versus C. When you think about C, making something at home or in the office, you're like, no, I want to go out and treat myself, right? I don't want the, you know, office coffee. It might be Starbucks coffee that's in the office, but there's something about going and getting it, right? That's a special treat. And then D, a monster drink, elitism thing. Okay, yeah, neither good nor bad, right? It is what it is, right? So, and the important thing is whatever your customers are experiencing, it's important to understand what they want, what they need. So definitely. So when you're comparing like caffeine for like a cup of coffee to a monster drink, that, you know, that's an interesting, they both deliver caffeine. And I like thinking about these things, like what makes the difference between a hot cup of coffee versus, you know, an energy drink. You know, maybe it's a ritual. You know, is a coffee break a ritual? Is it comforting? Is there something comforting about a warm drink, a warm cup of coffee? Do you associate it with warm moments, comforting moments, tradition? You know, there's probably something in there too for some customers. So it's kind of fun to really kind of dig. All right, Tiffany brings up a good point. You can chug a monster. You probably can't chug a cup of hot coffee. So there's one drawback right there. But yes, so it's kind of fun to think through all the elements that make up the value proposition in A versus the rest of them. So this is a good exercise actually to you know, take your product and list every conceivable competitive item that you can think of based on utility, based on experience, based on whatever, and help it kind of round out what your full value proposition is. You know, make sure you have a position or an answer to what would make my customer choose mine over theirs, you know, over B, over C, over D. This is a good exercise to practice for yourselves. Okay. So you guys should have gotten worksheets sent in advance of this webinar. And if you haven't, or if you didn't see them, you will get them again. So don't worry. But at this point in the workshop, if we had like a full workshop, like, you know, we had hours together, we would actually sit down and work through this customer worksheet ourselves. But this is summarizing what we've already talked about. You know, defining who your customer is, create that persona, identifying the customer need and what they're currently using, like what other competition, you know, they're using to fulfill that need. And also the last question is particularly important. Why is the customer dissatisfied with the current solutions that are out there, all right? So at some point after this presentation, and you will get this video, you'll get a link to this video, so you'll have me talking you through it, and you'll also get the slides that I'm showing you, in addition to the worksheets too. So you'll have everything you need to fill these out. I do recommend that you do it. And you know what? You can also, you know, you guys are signed up for the SBDC. You can get your SBDC counselor to help you with this stuff too. Okay, let's talk about your competition. Your competition is however your customer is trying to solve their problem now, and any other conceivable way your customer could try to solve their problem. All right, monster drink, you know, city bus, anything else, right? So you need to know, it's your job to understand all the different ways your customer could solve that problem other than you. All right, sometimes your competition doesn't look like competition. So in the example of a wrinkly shirt, you know, your competition, you might anticipate stuff that's in category. Let's say you're coming up with a better way to iron a shirt. Maybe it's just, I don't know, at home steamer or something. You probably know about the stuff that's in category, like an iron, traditional iron, or even a wrinkle spray. But you might not anticipate that people use dry cleaning to really get wrinkles out, not just to clean their shirts, or they might be doing something else that you're unaware of. So just make sure you're thinking outside of the box when you're identifying your competitors. And at this point too, then you would fill out a competitive analysis. It's very important that you become an expert in your competition. It's actually a very fun exercise. You go on their website and you just learn everything you can about them. Maybe you even call them up and pretend you're a customer You find out more about their value propositions, and then you fill out this worksheet. You need to figure out what their competitive edge is. You need to know what that is so that you can differentiate your own, right? And so this worksheet walks you through how to become an expert in your competition. And I would identify your 3 closest in competitors, okay? The three biggest competitors. If you put yourself in the shoes of your customer, I have this need, I have this want, what's the most likely go-to of how I'm gonna solve it today? That's what your competitor 1 should be, okay? So go ahead and fill this out when you can. And each of these worksheets builds on itself, and we'll get to the finale here in a little bit, but this is very important that you fill this out. All right, let's talk a little bit more about how to map out and identify your brand positioning. And we're gonna use an example that of a sweetener. It's called Truvia. So it's a non-caloric, so it's 0 calories, no calories. And it's considered natural, so it's naturally derived. So it's not an artificial sweetener. So it's a naturally derived 0 calorie sweetener. Okay, that's Truvia. I think it's erythritol, if I remember correctly, and maybe stevia. Okay, we're gonna use something called a brand positioning map. All right, so we're gonna map out the Truvia brand positioning along with the competition, which would be other types of sweeteners that your customers might choose. So now put yourself in the position that you're either the founder of Truvia or the brand manager of Truvia or whatever. You work for Truvia. So now this is your brand. The point of this is to make sure that we're differentiated from the competition and that we can visually see them on this map. So when we map this out, we need to figure out what our axes are. So from our earlier slide, we remember that good positioning is differentiated from competition and it's relevant to the customer, right? Those 2 things, different from the competition, relevant to the customer. So our axes reflect what is relevant to the customer, okay? And in order to know that, you should ask yourself these questions just to know how to label these axes, right? How does the customer differentiate all the sweetener options on the shelf? What characteristics of sweeteners are important to them? What are they looking for when they shop for sweeteners? Okay, it looks like I messed up my my slides, so I kind of showed you one already from my own customer research. So so here's what I came up with from my customer research that I did. So there are 2 big drivers of what customers will pick when they're shopping for sweeteners. The first is that perceived healthiness of a sweetener. So so that's the y-axis up and down. And that's healthiness might be, you know, in this case might mean lower calorie versus higher calorie for this customer, right? Sugar's high calorie, right? So the existence of not sugar was probably based on the fact that people wanted to lower their calorie intake. And then the second most important thing when people buy sweeteners and they're shopping for them is perceived naturalness. And that usually divides customers into 2 product camps. One is artificial sweeteners, which would be on the left side, and natural sweeteners, which would be on the right side. Okay, and this is all perception. So if we're talking about what the reality is chemically, that's not something the customer has their head wrapped around, right? This is all perception, customer perception. That's what matters here. Okay. So now that we have our map, we can plot out where the competition goes. So this tells us where our competition is positioned. This is the brand positioning, right, that they'll be in. So I need input from you. What are all the different ways you can sweeten your coffee or tea? Just throw in the chat box, throw some sweeteners in there. The really familiar ones, the less familiar ones, whatever you got. Sweet and low, Splenda, blue stuff. Okay, good. Sugar, good. Good, all right, awesome. Yes, exactly. Those are the ones I thought of too. So pure white table sugar. Where does that belong on the map? Where does just white table sugar belong? Is it upper left, upper right, lower left, or lower right, do you think? Okay. Any more? Yeah, any more answers? Okay. Yeah, so we have a couple some variety in our answers. So because sugar is naturally derived, It's not technically artificially dry. They don't call it an artificial sweetener. It will be on the right-hand side. And plain sugar has a lot of calories, right? So lower right is the answer. So we're gonna put Domino sugar down there. Good. Now let's talk about something like aspartame, which is the Equal brand, the blue stuff, somebody said. Where does that belong? What does Equal belong? Yep. So let's see. And so my understanding of aspartame is it has 0 calories and it's an artificial sweetener. Yeah. Okay, good. So we're going to put Equal up in the upper left, right? So less natural in that it's an artificial sweetener, and lower calorie. Again, healthy. It's hard to wrap our heads around this, right? Because I think of artificial sweeteners as not particularly healthy. But for this type of customer shopping for an artificial sweetener, they're defining health as low calorie, lower high calorie, right? So we're going to throw Equal on the upper left. And because we're a little short on time, I'm going to throw some other ones in here. You know, Splenda is an artificial sweetener, also 0 calorie. They, in their marketing language, I can't speak to the truth of the matter. I am not a food scientist, but in their marketing language, they position Splenda as, they call it made from sugar. So from the consumer perspective, it might be even a little bit to the right of Equal, right? A little more natural, but still artificial, technically artificial. Yeah, maybe. You got your Sweet and Lows, right? That's been around for ages. That's probably equal to Equal, okay? You got something like honey, right? That's been around since the dawn of time. And that's definitely, you know, natural, but still high calorie, right? Because guava, right? Then you get into your other, you know, your stevias and your agave nectars and all the new stuff on the market. Okay, so we have some kind of crowded areas of this positioning map. The lower right of just a natural sweetener, but that's high calorie. And then we have the upper left, which is an artificial sweetener that's low calorie, but artificial. And, you know, if you were to identify what area of this map, if you could come up with a product that could fit this, where would you want it to be? Which quadrant would you want it to be? Do you think? What would really serve the customer demand and not be a crowded area where you have a lot of competition? I'll give you a hint. In marketing, we call it white space. Yeah, good. So white space means opportunity. It means an area of demand, low calorie and natural sweetener. Sign me up. I'll buy it, right? And it's not crowded. I don't have to compete with 3 other brands, right? So any white space that you can credibly deliver is an opportunity. That happens to be where Truvia lies. And Truvia only happened because a food scientist was clever enough to come up with a formula that fit this, right? So that's where Truvia is. Okay, I'm gonna fly through a couple of slides here so we have time for some questions. But just as a reminder, your competitive advantage is a lot like your positioning. You know, you wanna offer value that's better than the competition, but that's also differentiated from the competition, right? So when you think about differentiation, there are going to be some qualities that you have in common with your competition. Those are considered table stakes. You can't be a sweetener and not be sweet. You can't be a sweetener and not be soluble in liquid, right? You have to have that in common, right? So there's going to be some qualities you have that are the same as your competition, right? Those are the table stakes. But then the ones you really lean into are your differentiators. And this is where you can start building your brand positioning. You know, as Truvia, we are healthier, more healthy than Domino Sugar. We are more natural than Equal, right? This is starting to sound like I'm building an ad, isn't it, right? Because I'm starting to build my positioning. I'm a healthier, more natural sweetener. That's Truvia's brand positioning. We just did it, guys. That was it. Now, we need to dress it up, right? We need to dress it up and put it in an ad, but that's really what it is. Healthier and more natural, okay? All right, so there's a competitive advantage worksheet that helps you arrive at your competitive advantage, and following this process should get you to where we just got with Truvia, okay? It asks you, you know, what does your customer need, and how can you be better than the competition, and how can you be different than the competition? That's what this worksheet goes through, Okay. And here is the brand positioning statement. So now we've arrived at how to construct your brand positioning statement. So you have a worksheet that you can take all those worksheets you just did and use them to fill in this brand positioning statement. And this statement will ground you. I help you identify your brand positioning, but ground your team in what you're all about, what your brand is about. This will inform your communication strategy, inform your marketing strategy, inform everything. This is the foundation right here, okay? Let's look at some quick examples from other companies. Amazon in 2001, because Amazon's changed so much. But this is an example of their actual brand positioning statement back then. Number one, your target customer. 4, World Wide Web. It's so old, guys, that they use the World Wide Web. Okay, no one says that anymore. But 4 World Wide Web users who enjoy books. Oh, by the way, this is back when Amazon was selling books online only. Amazon.com is a retail bookseller that provides instant access to over 1.1 million books. Unlike traditional booksellers, there's the competition. Amazon.com provides a combination of extraordinary convenience, low prices, and comprehensive selection, right? Here's another example of Zipcar. Zipcar is a car rental service that you can rent cars by the hour, and the cars are parked along the streets. That's very common in large cities. Target customer. And this one, Zipcar actually flipped some of these elements around. All the elements are there, but they're in a different order than the previous example. So target customer. For urban dwelling, techno-savvy consumers, business, when you use Zipcar, then a description of your product, car sharing service, right? That's kind of what it does for the customer. Instead of owning a car, that's the main competition that they identified, is owning the car. And then how you serve the customer better. You save money while reducing your carbon footprint, okay? So I'm just gonna go over this real quick. So for you, when you fill this out, you start by identifying your target customers. You're gonna get specific, right? You're gonna identify your bullseye target. You're gonna list your business name or your product. You know, for target customer, your business is then describe what it is, product, service, category. That, here's where you say what it does for the customer. That's the benefits, how it fulfills their need. Unlike the competition, a brief description of the competition, how you serve the customer need better. So unlike the competition, here's what we do. Here's how we're different, right? This is how you describe it. And then lastly, reasons to believe. And that's the specific benefits of the evidence or the attributes of the product that support that claim. Why should I believe that you're better, that you're different? Here's the reason why. We're more natural, we're 0 calorie, right? Those are the 2 reasons to believe that we're a better option than equal, right? So this is something that you would fill out, and you would use all those other worksheets to get you to this point, okay? We're not going to go through advertising best practices because we're a little short on time, but I do have a slide in there for the advertising best practices, and that's how you communicate your brand positioning. I also have an example of an ad. This is a Febreze ad that I thought did this very extraordinarily well, okay? So just a little inspiration, okay? And that is actually all I have. I'm going to open it up for questions. So feel free to throw your questions in the chat box or even speak up. Any questions? Yes, there's a question about providing the worksheets. Those will be provided, they'll be emailed to you either tonight, probably tomorrow, actually, given the time, okay? Okay, there is a question about the web link. It's youtube.com WHB, what is it, / WHBG20. I'll let Jamal confirm if that's correct. Okay, sure. We'll tell you what, you guys go ahead and write your questions in the chat room. I'm gonna actually just flip through a couple of upcoming events so you guys know about them, and I will, if I see any other questions, I'll just stop.
I have one, can you hear me?
Oh yes, go for it.
Okay, sorry, I didn't want to I was trying to figure out how to unmute. It took me a little bit.
Sure.
But so you were saying that there's find three competitors, and mine is going to be Christian clothing, like clothing with Christian words on it, or like God's biggest fan is, for an example, like T-shirts that say God's biggest fan. Will my competitors be regular clothes people or other Christian clothes people? Who does my competitor?
Good question. Yeah, a couple good questions about competition here. So I would say prioritize your closest in competition. So if you're creating Christian clothing with, you know, the sayings and verses and so forth written on them, your closest in competition would be probably other clothing that does similar, you know, provides similar products that also that your competition, that your customer can buy. So if it's, you know, if it's a Christian clothing company that's based, you know, across the world and they can't get to it, then don't include it. But they have to be, you know, it has to be accessible to your customer. But that's your closest in competition. So that should be number one, right, on that list. But it also would be other types of clothing that would appeal to your customer. Maybe maybe it doesn't have the Christian, you know, imagery or language on it, but it might be something else. Maybe it's, well, you tell me, what else might your customer wear? You know, how might they pick their t-shirt? Maybe it's a t-shirt with an inspirational message on it. I don't know. Here's where talking to doing some research, talking to folks who fit your customer type, that target market, ask them, you know, how do you decide what to wear in the morning? You know, if you're picking a t-shirt, how do you decide which t-shirt to wear? Those are great questions to ask, and then you'll figure out who your competition is.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Good luck. Oh, thank you guys. Yeah. Any other questions? I see that Allison had mentioned about, you know, competition with an art museum. So other art museums, you know, if they're in the vicinity, definitely would be on the list, but you're absolutely right. Other entertainment options is really the larger category that you're competing against. That's a great point.
We compete against the Philadelphia Museum of Art, but we're not the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And so we know that, but the other options for people's leisure time is really what we are talking about. And I filled it out with the State Museum and the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and, you know, and that was silly. So,
oh no, but it's not
an exercise worthwhile to do.
Yeah, of course. And those should be on the list too. They should be on the list. They might just be, you might just move them up or down in priority based on what you learn. But, you know, it could be that, you know, the competition is defined by, you know, how families spend an afternoon. Yeah. Maybe it's a movie, maybe it's at a bakery. I don't know, you know. But again, interviewing those customers, doing a little market research, you know, I love putting together surveys and just, you know, putting them different places for people to stumble into and gathering that intel. Just like, what do you do on an afternoon? You know, just, yeah, you'll figure out what that competition is. Let's see here. Other question. Oh, as founders of a girls and women nonprofit, who are my customers? Okay, if there are other organizations that serve those same beneficiaries, those would be your competition. And it might not feel like competition, right? When it's in a community service kind of feel, you know, you might not frame it that way, but there are other services that your target may go to for assistance. And that matters when you're, you know, if you're trying to get a grant, for example, you really need to have, you know, make sure you've outlined how you're different from what's out there, because oftentimes funders don't want to feel like they're, you know, they're very selective with who they give money to, right? And they want to make sure they're not duplicating services that are out there. So, so it's important to have a strong position on how you're different than other services out there. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, do make sure that you go on our website and the SBDC website. We have a couple of legal webinars next week, and well, no, one's in 2 days and one's at the end of July, and they're fabulous. And they feature our Penn State legal teams, legal clinics, which offers free legal help to anybody in Pennsylvania who's an entrepreneur. So please do go, sign up. They're free. They're great. And yeah, keep signing up for our educational events. We love seeing you guys. Any other questions?
Annie, we have one caller. If they do want to unmute themselves, they can press *6 if
Great.
if they would like to unmute themselves.
That sounds great.
Caller, I've unmuted you if you wanted to ask a question.
Hello, this is Nona Watson. I am the Executive Director for a Department of Economic Development. I was just listening in and enjoying the webinar. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you, and thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. I do see one question here about the URL for the webinars on the legal clinic. In the deck that I'm going to send you, my presentation slides at the end. First of all, you can get to them via our website. You can get to them via the SBDC website, but here they are. One's on the 9th and one's on the 22nd. Like I said, they're on the SBDC calendar. They're on our website. They will also be in the deck I send you at the end. They're hyperlinked, so you can click on the image and you can get to the sign up. Okay, so a couple different ways to get to them. Anything else, guys?
No, I think that's all. If there's no more questions.
All right, well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Annie. Just wanted to, once again, thank you. Again, thank the SBDC for being a great partner. Just before we wrap here, I'm just going to add my email address and telephone number down in the chat. So if anyone needs to reach out to me at the city. So if you have questions about how to start a business in the city of Harrisburg, or if you are an existing business, but maybe just have some questions about licensing, permitting, different financial incentives and grant programs, please reach out. We're available to help. Also, in the coming weeks, we'll be announcing some more information about our next session. Right now, we have that scheduled for October the 6th, same time, 3:30 to 5 p.m. And that's going to be titled Common Myths About Starting a Business. So kind of depending on where we are, at the state of the world at that time, we may be back to, a in-person session with, some safety precautions in place, or if not, we'll be delivering that again via Zoom.
Thanks. And I've also put my email address and that Launchbox URL in the chat box. So please reach out. I'm also, as I mentioned, a management consultant for the SBDC. So if you're looking for one-on-one counseling, just email. Thanks, guys.
Also, just for anyone who is not online and can't see the chat, my telephone number is 717-514-7911. And my email address is JA.Jones, my last name, at harrisburgpa.gov. That's JA.Jones at harrisburgpa.gov.
I'll go ahead and read mine too. my email address is Harrisburg Launchbox, all one word, Harrisburg Launchbox at psu.edu. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thanks again. Thanks again to Annie and the Penn State Launchbox. Thanks again to Kutztown SBDC. And thank you all for joining us. Take care.